general public. As a result, when we take the tax, increasing in tax revenue may be a burden for taxpayers. Suppose they are increasing the tax base, no problem. New taxpayers will come into the tax net, right? Therefore, rather than increasing the tax rate, they should concentrate on new taxpayers bringing into the tax net. Now, then the total expenditure. When we are estimating 15.4% of 5,300 billion rupees as the revenue, the expenditure budget is 7,057 billion rupees. That is 20.5% of the GDP. Now, obviously, with this, there's a budget deficit of 1,757 billion, and it is 5.1% of the GDP. Slightly increased situation than the last year. That means expenditure has gone up. In rupee-wise, expenditure has gone up. As a percentage-wise, same percentage. But income has dropped. As a result, it has badly affected to increase the deficit. Now, definitely, when there's a deficit, when we see this budget, the government is more concentrating domestic sources to fill this gap. Then when we are seeking for domestic sources of filling this gap, definitely it will badly affect to the inflation of the country. Because government need money for various services and activities. Then they have to collect this money. If we are not getting this money from overseas sources, that means we have to borrow from local entities or persons, any person, right? That means the future of, we have a doubt about the inflation during the year 2026. Now we have, today we have a learned panel. They will discuss these things in detail. Then analysis of government revenue during the past couple of years. I'm not going to read this. I extracted these figures from the Fiscal Policy Department. The tax revenue is only 25%. 25% of the total, it is 25%. Then the domestic consumption taxes, that means these are direct taxes, only 25%. Then indirect taxes, connecting with imports 31%, then indirect taxes connecting with imports 35%, connected with domestic consumption 31%. Now see, 31 and 35 altogether 66% against 25% of direct tax. Indirect tax is very much higher than the direct tax. This is not a good sign for a country's development, but can't help. Government need this money, right? Then non-tax revenue is 8%, right? Now we'll move to the tax proposals. Out of this tax proposal, I will highlight the main items. After this session, I'll be sharing this document through CMA. Therefore, you will be getting this, all participants will be getting this document later. Right. Reduction of VAT and SSCL registration threshold. This is purely as a government revenue measure. Now, we notice that government is planning to increase their tax revenue by 185 billion rupees. This is one sourcing of fund. They are trying to reduce the VAT threshold and the SSCL threshold. But when they do this, it might badly affect to the SME sector. Now that means now at present, the threshold is 60 million. They are proposing to bring that down to 36 million per annum. Then lot of that people who are below 60 million turnover level per annum will come into the net. But the problem, whether these newly joining people do they have sufficient resources to manage this? That's one issue, because they need more, they need the services from professionals, or they need to recruit people to manage this task. Therefore, this will badly affect to the SME businesses which are not equipped with required resources. Commonly, can the resources available with the IRD manage this loading of new files? We have our doubt. If they lose the management, it will badly affect to the existing revenue as well. Then will this affect to the promised risk-based refund to eligible to exporters and Section 22(7) registered people? Now, once the control or administration over these files get weakened, that might badly affect to the refunding of tax to exporters and long-term projects. That shouldn't happen like that. Will the additional income substantiate the negative effects of this proposal? We have to think about the economy of increasing the tax. Then the SSCL on vehicles. Now, at present, the SSCL at the time of importation, no SSCL, but at the time of disposing, the SSCL is there. Now, now they are trying to remove the SSCL. Now they are trying to introduce SSCL at the time of importation, not at the time of reselling. Now, what will happen? Now, at the time of import, now normally in the local market imported items, when we are selling, we have to pay SSCL 2.5% on the 50% of the turnover. That means effectively 1.25%. If it is a manufacturing and sale, 85% limit in there. Now, once they introduce this 2.5% at the time of import, value for duty comes with 10%. The value for VAT on import comes with 10% margin loading. Now that means thereafter they will calculate. We have to calculate 2.5% on 110% of the value. When we calculate 2.5% on 110, the ultimate result is 275. At present, we are paying 125. Then ultimately the cost of these vehicles will go up by 1.5%. That's the ultimate effect. It will go up by 1.5%. Then VAT and SSCL on imported coconut oil now propose to remove the special commodity levy and include VAT and SSCL or at the time of import. This is a good proposal, because in Sri Lanka we import a lot of palm oil to mix with our coconut oil and sell in the local market, as well as for various industries. Right. Now then, when the special commodity levy is there, there's a cascaded effect. You won't get the input credit. When they introduce the VAT instead of commodity levy, you get the input credit. Therefore, the people who are doing various manufacturing or activities in Sri Lanka, when they are importing, it is always advantageous for them to get the input credit on this VAT component. Therefore, this proposal is good. Now, I have mentioned accordingly, local producers and manufacturers, including newly registering SME businesses, using imported oil can claim VAT input credit. That's a good proposal. Then similarly, on import of fabric at present, no VAT at the time of import. Now in future, they will start removing the cess on import and replace with VAT on import. Then similarly, the input credit facility is there by doing that. Now, even in this case, this proposal is welcome as the measure of securing the local producers. At the same time, even the newly registered in SME businesses using imported fabric can claim input credit on that. That's a good sign. Then I'll move to the next slide. Next one. National tariff policy. This is a common thing. Always the government budgets, they say that they are restructuring or reorganizing the import duty structure. Now, this time again, they are saying 0%, 10%, 20%, 30%. But ultimately, when they introduce these rates, it is simplification is welcome, but certain taxes, certain items, the tax might go up. If it is the situation, the cost will go up. At the same time, even the tariff is simplifying by introducing 4 rates. When the government is losing the government revenue, what will happen? They will go and introduce some other taxes, some other levies at the time of import. Like in vehicles, luxury tax, excise duty, various other taxes are there. Therefore, this simplification, generally this simplification won't give real effect to the market because the government is normally trying to cover up that loss of revenue. Then improving tax audit process, that's good. Then telecommunication, there's a proposal to the Telecommunication Act to be amended. That's good proposal. I'm not going to read these things, certain items. Then the development of national electronic invoicing. This is a proposal which professionals, we ask the government to include. This time also, again, they have mentioned this in the government budget. Now, if they'll introduce e-invoicing platform owned by the government for all business people to log into that and raise the invoices, definitely they can increase the number of tax files, effective tax files. And as a result, if it works out properly, definitely we need not to pay the highest tax rates what we are paying in the Asia, Sri Lanka. Now, when the Singapore's tax rate is only 17%, our tax rate, corporate body is 30%. Then again, dividend tax is there because a lot of taxpayers are not paying taxes. Now, therefore, this is one of the best proposal which they should do. As a result of securing the government tax revenue with an e-invoicing system, the government will be able to offer tax concessions in future. Once it works out, government can give tax concession, reduction of tax rates and all. Then enhance capital allowances. At present, you need to invest $3 million to enjoy enhanced capital allowance relief. Now, they are proposing to reduce it up to 250,000 rupees. That's a good proposal. That is 75 million rupees. Then even the SME people can get together, join couple of people, start a joint venture and start a business and enjoy this benefit. Therefore, we should encourage this proposal. Then single office for IRD and digitalization. Now the budget has allocated 2 billion rupees to construct a new building complex for the IRD to bring all IRD office into one place. This is a joke. For 2 billion, what you can construct? You can go up to about 200,000 square feet. With 200,000 square feet, can you manage the entire IRD? Definitely, it is not possible. Therefore, I don't think it is a good proposal. I don't think. Rather than concentrating on this, at the same time, it might create unnecessary traffic and unnecessary other effects. If they'll spend this money for the e-invoicing platform, that will give proper results. Then exchange of tax-related information with other countries and other institutions, that's good. Then structuring of tax incentives, yes, that's good. Now, of course, there aren't any effective tax incentives, therefore nothing to structure now, right? There aren't any thing like that. FDI promotions, yes, always it is good if they'll manage to do that. But when our tax rates are the highest tax rates in Asia, how can we get down foreign investors into the country? Then the private, the public-private partnership businesses, yes, it is a good proposal. Only thing, as far as the government sector is not putting their fingers into this, it will work out. Otherwise, that will be another disaster. Then bad debts on telecommunication industry to allow for income tax, that's a good proposal. Then free trade agreements with other countries and other regions, that's a good proposal. Right. Then these are with relate to the taxes. Out of these things, few items are welcome for SME sectors. Now we'll see recent development of some other things. With this recent incidents and various things like that. IRA notice on postponing the income tax return filing date. Right. I have shared these documents. They issued one notice on 28th November with lot of errors or lot of weaknesses in it. Then after pointing out, luckily they issued another notice on 2nd of December after incorporating all required things. Earlier notice, it was covering only the charging of action against failure to furnish return. They were silent, the time bar effect and all. Luckily, they introduced released another notice on 5th of December. Anyway, this is the new one. 5th of December notice covers all these things, and the return filing date extended till 31st December 2025 with related 24-25 tax return. 24-25 tax return. You can file up to 31st December 25. If you will file on or before 31st December, they will not face legal consequences for late submission of tax return. Now they have covered the next part also, such as importation of penalties, issuing assessments. Luckily, they have covered that also, or institution of criminal proceeding. Now it is well covered, right? Then the second point, IRD notice on postponing. Yeah, that is the new notice. It is welcome. The third item, VAT Gazette. Now, recently, they issued a Gazette notification specifying a sample tax invoice. Specifying a sample tax invoice. This is a sample tax invoice, which contain some of information. This contains some of the information, required information. Now keep in mind, they called it as a sample, right? Therefore, now see, the heading say, a sample tax invoice is provided below. Now, by seeing this, there are a lot of weaknesses in this sample. Unfortunately, some of our government servants feel that they know everything. They are not trying to consult the real stakeholders of the country. Now, they could have to discuss with the stakeholders rather than gazetting this. Now, the gazette contains a lot of issues. Now, I'm not going to talk much on that. Now, in certain places, now it says certain places, now this one, mode of payment. By the time you are selling a service or an item, goods, can you quote the mode of payment? Mode of payment, you may be giving a credit. After some time, you may be receiving money. Maybe online transfer, maybe account pay check or cash payment or whatever it is. How can you quote that at the time of issuing the VAT invoice? Now, likewise, if you'll see this, lot of errors are there. Now, in this, the tax invoice number format, what they have given in the singular one, there are some weaknesses. A lot of weaknesses are there. Now, after that, Institute of Chartered Accountants, the tax faculty had discussions with the IRD, and as a result, they have mentioned that they'll be postponing the effective date. Now, the effective date is 1st January 2026. They are unofficially informed that they'll be postponing the effective date till 1st of April. I think that the reason is to rectify these weaknesses, get the stakeholders' views, rectify these weaknesses, and issue an amended gazette. We are waiting for the amended, proper gazette. Right. Therefore, you need not to worry. You need not to change your computer system immediately. You wait until they come with another gazette notification or some further notice. Next, Minister of Finance Budget Circular number 8 of 2025. By this, they have announced various relief to the affected parties. I have attached that notice also here. Lot of criticisms are there with relate to this notice. Yes, definitely the government should support the affected people. No doubt about that. Government should support. But a lot of criticisms are there with relate to some of these amounts. Now, as an example, I don't have time to read entire thing. As I'll be sharing this, you all can see leisurely. One item, if we'll see, now, payment of allowance to build a new house for houses completely damaged and damaged, 5 million rupees. Now, sometimes the house which has lost value may be only about 1 million, right? Because different people's lifestyle, they had houses, they destroyed it. Therefore, the 5 million, whether it is too much in certain cases. Yes, if we can, better to give. But whose money we are distributing? Taxpayers' money. Therefore, a lot of criticisms are there on this. Right? I'm not going to criticize it, but what I said is that a lot of criticisms are there. Then, payment allowance for the purchase of a land. Suppose you have lost the land, another 5 million rupees. Now, in the areas where this affected mainly, some areas, a purge value may be about 50,000 rupees. Then 10 purge, how much? Only 5 lakhs. Now, therefore, I think these things we have to structure to suit with those places. That is one issue. Then now when we read this, we can see a lot of issues are there. In addition to that, we have another issue. Even the government legalized this or issued this circular and all, whether our office government public servants will easily release this money. Majority will not. Nowadays, majority will not take decisions on their own. They will pass on to another person. Therefore, the effectiveness of these proposals is questionable. Right? Next, I have shared another document. Central Bank has issued a relief measures to assist the individuals and business people. Now, this circular is addressing to the banks in Sri Lanka. Central Bank has negotiated with the Bankers Association, and come to a conclusion. Under this, they are proposing various maximum interest rates on certain loans and postponing of recovery action for next 3 to 6 months. Right? That's a good proposal. But I notice in this, the maximum interest rate is 9%. Whether 9% is bearable by the lenders is a question. Now, this time what has happened, central bank is, or the government is not going to shoulder any of the cost of this reduction. That is what has happened in tsunami in 2020. The Treasury contributed something. This time there's no proposal like that. As a result, bankers, they have proposed maximum of 9%. Whether 9% is bearable by the government. Then because there's a time constraint, I'll move to the next part. Next, the Ministry of Finance has issued another the circular for the importation, giving some facilities to specified projects at the time of import. At the time of import, certain items for specified projects for the disaster recovery projects. Disaster recovery projects. Now they are trying to exempt from those imports, from VAT, from custom duty and PAL and those things, yeah. VAT exemption, custom duty exemption, as well as PAL exemption, they are going to give to these specified projects for disaster recovery projects. That's a very good proposal. Not for everybody, only for that purpose. Then in addition to that, they have covered the Export Development Board Act also with this, right? And SSCL Act also. This is a good proposal, right? Then the government budget for the port city, very recently they published a Port City Act Amendment Bill. I have included that amendment bill also here. Now, as per this amendment bill, I have highlighted few items, what they are trying to do for this amendment bill. Now, Port City Act, they are trying to amend, right? One, now this is the last slide actually. Now, relaxing of certain charges of the commission on applicants. Now, until the applicant get the certificate of approval, until the certificate of approval is granted by the commission, there won't be any charges by the commission. That's a good proposal. Then if the application is rejected, no cost, no problem. Then termination of tax relief on employment. Now, all of us can remember government promised some tax relief for employees who are working for these companies, the Port City company. Now that is removing. Ultimately, believing the government, lot of our clients, they have gone and registered businesses in Port City and signed some agreement, partial agreements, because those annexures, tax-related annexures were not there in that annexure. Now they are saying no more employment exemption. Again, what will happen? Our people will leave the country for betterment. Then make the provision of Foreign Exchange Act. They are trying to connect the Foreign Exchange Act, facilitate under the Port City Act also. That's a good thing. Then grant authority to the central bank to carry out regulations and supervision. That's very much important. The Port City the companies, the operations, finance sector, offshore banking operations in Port City, the supervision part to be handed over to the central bank, authority to be given to the central bank. Then authorize the finance minister to suspend, revoke or cancel a license issued under the Port City Act. We have to be very careful when we do this type of things. Foreign investors will not come and invest in a project in Sri Lanka. Amend the type of businesses that may be conducted. Now, believing that employees will be getting the employment tax exemption, lot of companies registered. Now, they may not be interested of doing that. Therefore, government says that business, they'll be able to change the business. The provisions will be incorporated into that. Make provisions relating to the auditing of accounts. Yes, in the bank, offshore banking, where businesses in Port City to audit the accounts. Then prescribe the criteria for the identification of the business of strategic importance. Yeah, strategic important businesses to be identified for Port City approval. For that, they are trying to create criteria. Then provision for evaluation of the performance of the business of strategic importance. Yeah, they should they should create provisions for evaluation of this performance. That's good idea. Then insert in some new definitions for the act. Right. Now I have attached the act, the bill also here. I'm not going to, but not going to read that. Entire bill I have attached here. When I share this through the CMA Institute, you all be able to see all these things in one document, right? Then that's all for the time being. Today by about 3:30 I have to leave. Therefore, if there are any questions from me where I should answer, I may have to answer before 3:30. I have to leave by 3:30. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ranavira. Next one on the agenda is the implications and critical evaluations on SMEs by Mr. Suresh Pereira, Principal, Tax and Regulatory at KPMG. Over to you, Mr. Suresh.
Thank you, Puvendran. Let me begin by thanking CMA for inviting me to address this webinar. So I think Mr. Ranavira presented in detail with regard to the changes that have happened, the circulars that have been published, as well as the recent bills and the budget proposals. But what I'm going to do is, I have a set of slides, and what I'm going to do is to give my thoughts in relation to what is happening, specifically focused on SMEs and the impact on the SMEs with regard to the recent unfortunate incidences that are taking place in Sri Lanka. So let's see. I think my slides are visible to everyone. Puvendran, it's visible, no? Hello?
Can see, yeah.
Can see, no?
Yeah, visible.
Yeah.
Visible.
Okay. Right. So I'm going to focus on SME and also in the current context, the challenges that they have. But let's see what SMEs, what is the status of SMEs in the Sri Lankan economy, in Sri Lanka, right? Now, I think when Professor started also, he's pointed out that importance of SME. SMEs contribute more than 50% of the GDP of the country. So SMEs play a vital role in the Sri Lankan economy. 45% of the employment is coming from the SME sector, and more than 75% of the enterprises in Sri Lanka are SMEs, according to the data released by the ADB and the government of Sri Lanka in 2018. So this is where I extracted this from. So 75% of the enterprises, 45% of the employment, and more than 50% of the GDP of Sri Lanka is coming from the SME. So then SMEs are a vital aspect in the Sri Lankan economy. Now, what we have to keep in mind is, okay, we had this disaster. When these disasters happen, we have to keep in mind disasters don't affect everybody in the same manner. They affect in disproportionate manner. Now, when in a troubled economy, not only in Sri Lanka, world over, it is said that when the economy is in trouble, in a troubled economy, the weaker parties could be the individuals, could be businesses, SMEs. They get squeezed more. It affects adversely, disproportionately in relation to the weaker parties, the SMEs. Whereas the stronger parties, I would say the big companies, they tend to prosper when the economy is adverse or when the economy is in trouble. So this is going to be true in Sri Lanka also. Not something that we have to keep our fingers crossed to see whether it will be the case in the future. This has been the trend in the recent past also. We know basically Sri Lanka unfortunately has been going through tough times in the past, and how those incidences have also affected the two ends, SMEs and the big companies. And we do find SMEs, those incidences are tough on the SMEs. And I think we know these numbers are coming in the papers. It is estimated as of now, the total reconstruction cost, or to put it in a simple way, the loss incurred due to this recent cyclone Ditwa is between 6 to 7 billion USD is what is being estimated as of now. This may change sometimes, okay, but that is what we have. And also I was reading some numbers. This disaster as of now has slowed down the real GDP growth by 0.5% to 0.7%, but there is scope for this to be a greater number, a single digit number in the future once all the estimates are done, once all the calculations are also carried out. So this is the environment that we are facing. Now, what is the impact of the cyclone Ditwa on the SMEs? There's water everywhere, there's flooding, and that results in the production capacity of the SMEs coming to an halt, I would say indefinitely. Why? Because they don't have proper, retained earnings to buffer them, unlike big companies. So I believe most of these SMEs will have a very low income or no income situation starting from the end of November, and until they resume their operations and get into the normal footing. Will they be able to do? Maybe some of them will able to stand up again, revive again, and keep going. But unfortunately, we will also witness some of them moving out of their businesses also because of the disaster when they cannot absorb the impact. They are also going to experience their cost of production getting impacted. Their purchasing powers would have gone down because of this Ditwa. The cost that they have to incur for raw materials, pay salaries to their workforce, and all that they may not be able to do out of their retained earnings. The money in their bank accounts may not be sufficient. And so what would happen is they will need funding to keep their working capital going. And it's very unlikely that most of these SMEs would have proper insurance covers, natural disaster insurance covers, very unlikely. So in order for their working capital to continue, in order for them to get the funding, what are the methods that are there, and most importantly, what are the mechanisms that are put in place to actually help the SMEs? There are basically a lot of movements that are taking place, but whether these will be, successfully address the issues is questionable, and let's see what's going to happen. Now, let's see. Again, I will come to this topic, but let me link in the some of the budget proposals that they are in relation to the SME sector also. Mr. Ranavira went in detail, but let me see how these things, if happens, will affect the SMEs also. So basically, there are some socio-economic development incentives mentioned, and there is a reference to improving the investment climate overall and focus on digitalization. And if these things happen, then SME sector is also expected to get a benefit if this happen, right? But keep in mind, for that, they have to survive first. To reap the benefit out of these budgetary proposals, they have to somehow survive and get their businesses revived to continue the battle. Now, very important budget proposal that Mr. Ranavira also pointed out, everyone is aware of this. The thresholds applicable to the two indirect taxes that we have in Sri Lanka, the VAT and the SSCL, is to be reduced to 36 million from 60 million. Okay, from theoretical perspective, I won't have a quarrel with regard to the 60 million threshold coming down to 36 million in case of the VAT. If I have one comment in relation to that is, this should have happened in one shot from 300 million directly to 36 million and not from 300 million to the 60 million and then to the 36 million, because moment you do this thing in two stages, that has given opportunity for the traders to profiteer in two occasions. In other words, how to say, obtain hidden profits by increasing the goods and prices of the goods and services disproportionately to the tax impact. It's something that happens the moment you change the VAT rate, moment you change the exemptions, moment you change the thresholds. Right, but I do have issue with regard to the 36 million reduction in relation to the SSCL, Social Security Contribution Levy, which is a tax that should not be in the Sri Lankan VAT net, sorry, Sri Lankan indirect tax net, because by having a Social Security Contribution Levy, which is a turnover tax in another way, we are diluting the features of the taxation of the value addition. Sri Lanka in 1998 opted to do away with the collection of indirect taxes on turnover because of the cascade, to eliminate the cascading effect. And that is why we opted for GST, again, that tax on value addition. But in Sri Lanka in 2009, SSCL was reintroduced, sorry, the turnover tax was reintroduced using another name called NBT, and it continued till 2019, abolished and again reintroduced using another name called SSCL. And this combination is distort the Sri Lankan tax system, because we do have VAT and SSCL, and I think we have spoken a lot in relation to this. Now, this move to reduce the threshold of 60 million to 36 million seems to perpetuate the concept of the SSCL, and that is not what should happen, and this is something that should be taken out. And later on, I will be speaking in relation to how this SSCL should be taken out and how do you close that gap that will occur because of the taking out of the SSCL. But it's something that should not happen. But now, in relation to the businesses, it is the SMEs that are going to face the repercussions with regard to this VAT and the SSCL. How do I say this? Spreading of the net, bringing down the threshold. Not the right time, right, with the natural disasters, with the cyclone Ditwa. And I think the common sense or the better sense should prevail. And what I expect is this implementation of this measure to be deferred till 1st of January 2027 is a good idea if the government would look at this positively. I understand the challenges that the government will have in doing this thing, because this will create a big gap with regard to the revenue estimates. But at the same time, we have to get this SME sector up and running again. And this is going to be a major barrier for the SMEs implementation it on the 1st of April. So I think my idea is we have to consider whether this implementation date should be deferred. Specifically in the context of the SVAT abolition also. The repercussions of the SVAT abolition also we will witness from January, mid-January, we will see this, and that is going to also have an impact on almost everyone, but in relation to the SMEs also. Now, this cash flow, due to the cyclone, the SMEs are going to face big cash flow impacts, and that is going to be severely impacted with the abolition of the SVAT, and also now bringing this two thresholds down to impact the SME operation. So we have to be prudent when we are analyzing these ones, and let's keep our fingers crossed to see how these things will end up. And right, so somebody was actually discussing about this SSCL. Okay, SSCL is not an indirect tax, it is a direct tax. income tax is a direct tax on the profits. SSCL is a direct tax according to the law on the turnover. So why not introduce the clause to the SSCL Act to ensure it will remain a direct tax and that the traders or the relevant parties will not pass on this to the consumer and collect it from the consumer. Then sometimes that's a nice way to how do I say, modify the ratio that we keep speaking a lot in Sri Lanka with regard to the direct tax and the indirect tax. 80-20 ratio, if you want to rectify one quick surgery is to ensure SSCL will become a direct tax. It's not a tax that should be passed on, and ensure legally that relevant amendments are introduced so that will also have impact on the direct tax indirect tax ratio. So we will have a direct tax based on the turnover, direct tax based on the profit. Maybe things that we need to ponder, things that we need to consider going forward. Right. So what are the other things that we've seen in the budget proposals? There was a welcome move, like again, Mr. Ranavira pointed out, permitting small SMEs who are capable of investing 250,000 USD also to enjoy the enhanced capital allowances, or rather basically accelerated depreciation, and the 5-year tax exemption that is there with regard to the telecom industry, and of course the amendments introduced to the tax incentive regimes, the relevant statutes, and again, the impact with regard to the change of the tariff policy, the changing the bands, specifically the 20% band, the highest one going up to 30%, that can have again an impact on the SMEs, because that will have a direct impact with regard to their cost of production. And a big company may be able to withstand the change of the customs duty or the tariff in relation to their imports, but an SME will get squeezed there also, and whether they have the capacity to face that increase of the import cost. Those are question marks, and the challenges that would the SMEs would have to fail here. Right. The other ones, I think these ones, I think Mr. Ranavira commented in detail. And again, another thing, we are going to have a national framework with regard to how to say the attraction of the technology into our tax process is a good thing, and specifically like bringing in this formats and new formats, etc. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind this will force the SMEs also to adapt technology to survive in the modified tax system. In other words, they may have to consider investing in ERPs and etc. And these are going to be challenges, always challenges for an SME to invest in this technology. But at the same time, with the current condition, it's going to be a greater challenge. Right. So in the budget, I think there are certain other measures supporting the SMEs also. The one that we looked at, bringing down the 3 million USD threshold to 250,000 USD threshold for investing to enjoy the investment incentives that are there. And there was again a kind of a vague proposal in the budget with regard to expanding government bank loan schemes, providing concessional interest rates, and provision of loans without collateral under the National Credit Guarantee Institution. And then again, I mentioned about the main thrust of the budget speech, that the digitalization and the infrastructure development, etc., indirectly supporting the SMEs. The main one is what I mentioned, okay, with the cyclone Ditwa coming, whether we should defer the budget's proposal of bringing down the VAT and the SACL threshold to 36 million from the 1st of April. Whether that we should postpone to next year, beginning of next year, I think is an idea we should consider. I talked about this one, tariff policy. As we all know, basically challenges, the abolition of the VAT is going to be the key challenge for most of the exporters, but that's going to be a critical challenge for the SME sector. And in some cases, we do observe that there's a possibility of some of the indirect exporters losing their business in Sri Lanka. Sometimes their business opportunities here by getting wiped out, and they going out of the business because the direct exporters, instead of buying from the indirect exporters their requirements, they may decide to import directly because of the technical aspects involved, because of the cash flow issues involved, and the way the laws have been drafted. Okay, I mentioned this one also. Basically, we are looking into technology-based transition, and that involves cost. And if the SMEs are to prosper in this environment, they have to make investments in their technology. Right. I think let me speak a little bit with regard to the one of the documents that Mr. Ranavir also referred to. Relief measures is promulgated by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka with regard to the cyclone Ditwa, because there's a deadline that is mentioned here also. I think the listeners should try to absorb here. So what is the gist of this document, this central bank thing? So the central bank is proposing, or rather requesting, the banks to suspend the repayments on case by case, both capital and the interest, for a period of 3 to 6 years with regard to their existing bank customers, on case by case. If they come in writing, either electronically or in writing, before 15th of January 2026. So anyone who is affected, who is a customer of a bank, who has a banking facility, and central bank is requesting the banking sector to provide a suspension of both the capital and the interest for a period of 3 to 6 months on case by case. And also that notice goes on to say not to charge interest rate above the contract rate during the suspension period, and ensure that interest will not be charged on the deferred interest payments also. So now, important thing is, this is a request that is being made by the central bank to the bank. So adherence to this request of the central bank is something the bankers will have to see. Now, this is not going to be the way it is worded also, whether the banks will voluntarily follow this, because this is not a mandatory thing. It's a request made by the central bank. So these are things we have to be mindful. But what is the important thing? If you have been affected, you have the opportunity to reach your bank and request the suspension of the repayment of the capital and the interest, and that request should be made before the January 15th, 2026. So it could be made in writing or through electronic means, is what this first part of the first bullet point of the document is saying. And then it also, in addition to suspending the capital and the interest aspect of it, and as to how to calculate the interest excess rules, the document also refers to new loan facilities to be provided to the affected borrowers. Now, there again, how it's worded is, grant new loans to affected persons on a case-by-case basis based on the repayment capacity. So in other words, the central bank is telling to grant new loans, but then saying, okay, you can do it on case by cases by observing the repayment capacity. Now, yes, from a point of view of a bank, A prudent banker will always look at the repayment capacity, but then they will also be cautious, and whether when two companies ask for loans who are equally affected by the cyclone, let's see, a big company who has the repayment capacity and SME who does not have the repayment capacity. So we can expect what will happen, and of course the banks will look after banks. Banks are not violating any of the request in this document, but then the final outcome is going to be with there's a question mark whether SMEs will be able to secure new loan facilities under this one. And also attached to that, in relation to that new loans, the condition is the banks are being requested also to grant a grace period of 3 months also in relation to these 3 loans. So this is on top of the 3 to 6 months that are mentioned in the first part, that is temporary debt relief. The suspension of the repayments, one the time period considered is referred to is 3 to 6 months, and this is on top of that period. So altogether, cumulative grace period of up to 9 months is what is being stated in this. How do I refer to this document? Says a guideline. And also, if a new loan is granted for a period up to a period of 2 years, and or maybe a period that is going beyond 2 years, up to 2 years, 9%, and after the end of the 2 year period, it can be renegotiated for a appropriate interest rate, is what this document is referring to. So 9% is what? 9% is the ceiling given, requested here. So when you look at the normal bank interest rates nowadays, it's something like, let's say, from 6.5 to 10.5%, I think is what we see in the market. And the rate that is referred to here is 9%.
Suresh, time.
Yeah, sure. So this is my last slide. Yeah. So then also there is a reference to not to charge additional bank charges like for checkbooks, etc., processing fees, etc., also in this central bank document. Right. So I'll take this as the last point, right? So what I'm requesting is now we have a 6-year loss carry forward period in the context of this cyclone. I think maybe we should consider a longer period for loss carry forwards from rather than 6 years, maybe 10 years is what I'm suggesting. And also very important thing is under Section 18 of the Inland Revenue Act, we do have a limitation with regard to the deductibility of the finance cost. That means the thin capitalization rule. So now if these SMEs or any company is to grow, they have to depend on the loans from the banks. And this formula in the Section 18 prevents deduction of interest by a borrowing SME beyond the limit resulting from that particular formula. So I think this is time to amend that Section 18 to ensure the limitations with regard to the interest on bank loans should not be included into this formula, so that will facilitate the banks to borrow more and rebuild their businesses. And also maybe some exemption should be considered in relation to the donations to be made. I'll take up that one during the panel discussion. So I'll conclude my address, short address with this one, Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh. Next item is on the agenda will be delivered by Mr. Danath Fernando, CEO of Avocado Institute, on the macroeconomic outlook for economy and SMEs. Over to you, Mr. Fernando.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gajendra, and thank you very much for having me at the CMA webinar. So I will not be using any slides, but I'll be mainly focusing on the impact on the exchange rate, the interest rates, the inflation, and the debt sustainability overall is what I'm going to basically speak about in terms of the macroeconomic impact. I think a lot of impact on the SME sector has been spoken. I think no doubt that the cyclone has impacted all of us, and mainly the SMEs. But I would like to bring is to think of, I mean, to bring the framework on how to think about it. First, what we need to understand is someone's expenditure is someone else's income. When I spend money, if I buy something from a shop, that's an expenditure for me, and that become an income for someone else. So likely what can happen is when an external shock in this scale comes in, pretty much people goes into a sort of a uncertain mode, and you cut down some of the expenditure. And for an example, now the Christmas is coming, the New Year is coming. I mean, if we decide like, okay, things are bad, we are not going to buy any like clothing, or we are not going to make any cakes or something, that means the same SME sector that we have been speaking is going to impact. Because as an example, from Vasana cakes to Fab to everyone will get affected, because everyone is cutting down their expenditure, because then their income will be impacted. So that's the nature of this, how it works. And of course, when this happens, there's an implication on exchange rate, interest rates, and so as on the debt sustainability as well. So how I see it could happen is, again, I do not have like, a crystal ball in my hand to really say this is what's going to happen for exchange rate or the interest rate, because I think it all depends on the policy measures that we are going to take. At the same time, we have to look at this at a IMF context. So to overall the context is, we really do not know the estimation of like the damage, but it seems the consumption temporarily can come down. As we can see, people are quite reluctant to spend, and also I think a lot of numbers were given by Suresh and by Mr. Atula on the contribution for the SME for the national economy. And we have to also keep in mind about 60% of these, our economy is informal. So they are not even registered, and they may not even falling under any relief measures under what the government has announced. So they are pretty much under the radar. So what could happen is, when people slows down, temporarily the consumption may come down. When I say consumption, it is like pretty much the economy, the growth of the economy will slow down. That's number one thing that could happen. But there's also another side. The other side is, since there's massive interruption that has taken place for civil infrastructure, that's the bridges and the road and the construction, everything, there can be also pick up when we start like rebuilding it, because that requires a lot of resources in terms of construction that can pick up some of the things that we allow to let go. But in my view, the initial phase, the consumption will come down. As a result, the economy will slow down. The growth will slow down. Even it can pretty much contract temporarily. But contracting or slowing down is nothing to worry like an economic crisis, because that can happen. What is important is to have the stability. But of course, that contraction or slowing down will have an impact on the debt sustainability, so on and so forth, which we will come later. So overall, economy can slow down, number one. Number two, in terms of inflation, there's a chance that because of the supply side issues, the inflation can go up again on a temporary basis, provided that the central bank do not give any demand shocks. Again, to explain what I said, inflation is like there's a basket of goods, and you measure the prices of those goods over a period of time. So as a result, when this shock happens, as we all know, the carrot prices went for about 3,000 rupees a kilogram. So as the leeks and all the vegetable items coming from the hilly areas. But after 2 days, the prices have completely collapsed, crashed down, because now the supply chains have basically re-emerged, and supply is coming to the market. So when the prices goes up to 3,000 rupees, the inflation, because you are measuring that basket, can temporarily go up, but it can come down. But if the central bank, on a temporary basis, inflation can go up because of that, what I mentioned as a supply side. But it can go up further if the central bank decides that we have to keep the interest rates artificially low. to boost the economy. So then it can have a long-term inflation, in my view. But at the moment, nothing has been done, and we should also not forget that as per the new Central Bank Act, the government cannot borrow money from the central bank. But on a disastrous, if it's a disaster, natural disaster, national disaster, then actually for a 6 months period, actually the government has that option, provided it is approved by the parliament. But that measure hasn't been taken. What the governor has indicated, and I think what has been indicated is that we are going to manage it with the existing tax revenue that we had for the first 11 months of the year. And the good news is, luckily, for the first 11 months compared to previous years, as Ms. Atula showed in the numbers, that we had good revenue collection compared to previous years. So as a result, we were in a better position to basically to manage this crisis. So that's on the inflation. In terms of interest rates, before the crisis, actually the banks and the financial sector, because of the credit growth, banks were actually most of the credit were going to the private sector, and in fact we were assuming that the rates had to go up, because for banks to continue that credit cycle, they had to attract deposits from the depositors, because ultimately how banks lend out money is by attracting it from the depositors. But the credit growth has been quite good, and they really wanted money to basically continue the credit growth. So probably we were expecting a bit of a interest rate up, mainly on the deposit side, to attract money to keep the credit cycle going. But with the current entire interruption, maybe the credit growth will slow down. Unless it picks up because of the government's relief measures, which has been announced. And as we saw, we know the package, but depending on how it will really disperse, the speediness of the disbursements and how it will really utilize, matters will be impacted. So that's on the interest rate. On a long run basis, I do not expect the central bank to on the immediate basis, to increase interest rates. I hope they will not artificially cut down the interest rates as well, because if we cut down the interest rates to pick up consumption, we may have a balance of payment crisis after 6 to 8 months. But that's an option the central bank has. But likely they will remain the interest rates as it is my assumption. That's on the inflation and the interest rates. In terms of exchange rate, again, it's a central bank. If they do not cut down interest rates, unlikely that the exchange rate will drastically depreciate. It may depreciate slightly, but I do not expect a massive depreciation. Of course, there can be another scenario that we are yet to see the numbers. Even if you go back to the tsunami time, because of the massive contributions and the grants and everything that we received from overseas, actually the exchange rate appreciated from about 104 rupees to about 99 rupees in 2004. So if the remittances picks up in this month, because Sri Lankans are quite generous, they have been helping people. So if the money flows in, there is a chance it may probably, rather than appreciation, my estimation is it will remain as it is, because at the same time your export industries have also affected. Again, it's a matter of quantification of how much is the impact with tourism, so on and so forth. But exchange rate, do not expect definitely a steep depreciation, because anyway the central bank has shock absorbers to manage the exchange rate to an extent. So do not expect a deep depreciation or an appreciation, because even if we have a massive flow, likely the central bank will buy those buy their inflows and build up their reserves. So that's mainly on the exchange rate. In terms of IMF program and the debt sustainability, I think the government, in my view, has, in a way, we are pretty much on hold with the 17th IMF program. Because on hold in the sense we agreed to a staff level agreement, and the conditionality was that the budget has to be in line with the 17th, like the staff level agreement that we came before the budget, and it was about to go to the executive board. But since now we have announced new relief measures, of course, our expenditure is going to go up. So that means our staff level agreement that we reached is on hold. And at the same time, we have already applied for the 18th IMF program, which is the rapid financing instrument, which will be the 18th IMF program. At the same time, while we are continuing with the 17th IMF program. So in that front, we are expecting about another 200 million US dollars pretty much for the crisis. So which will provide also space for stabilize the currency if we require. I think that's why I said very unlikely the currency will see a steep depreciation. So with that, comes on the debt sustainability. At the moment, I mean, on the immediate basis, there may not be like an immediate challenge, because anyway, our expectation was to roll over. We need about 2.7 billion to 2.8 billion US dollars on the external front. But we have to keep in mind our debt composition has changed from about 63% to local debt to about 37% external debt. So external debt front, we have about, I mean, I think we can manage it as at now. Anyway, we have to improve our credit rating to go and borrow money from the markets, which may slightly slow down if the recovery slows down. Of course, with this crisis, even Moody's have indicated that it will slow down with the cyclone. But we don't see like a crisis, like a debt crisis again, like we will not be able to pay it and default and all that in the immediate aftermath. It will depend on what are the other external shocks that will come on our way for the next couple of months. But afterwards, if the central bank keep the monetary policy up to mark, I do not see any major impact on the debt sustainability front in the short run. But if we again try to do if we cut down the interest rates, and if we artificially try to increase the imports, then there will be a challenge either on the exchange rate front or on the reserve front, which will ultimately impact on the debt sustainability. So that's the overall macroeconomic impact in terms of interest rates, inflation, debt sustainability, and exchange rate. So the SMEs, I think a lot has been covered, what I was about to say. But the government has to be also cautious while it is, the government has announced a massive relief package, which is good. At the same time, we have to be quite cautious about when you have such extensive relief packages, there's also room for corruption, because it's so attractive to get that 5 million or 2.5 billion because it's a big amount. But at the same time, it is needed for those who have really got affected because of this natural disaster. And that's something the government has to keep in mind. But again, my final point would be the answer to overcome this crisis is nothing but the reforms. Because reforms are needed to grow the economy even after this crisis. And on those reforms, definitely we have to look at the labor market reforms, and at the same time, even I would say the land reforms and the trade reforms, because that's what basically can keep, we can bring growth faster. That will ultimately help the SMEs and the entire businesses. So that's the overall view in terms of the macroeconomy and for the SMEs and the way forward. I'll stop from there and I'll stay around for any questions for the best interest of time.
Thank you, Mr. Fernando. Now we'll move to Mr. Lakshman Abhayasagara, who will speak about the government initiatives for these natural disasters. Over to you, Mr. Lakshman Abhayasagara.
Yeah, thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, let me thank Professor Vattabala and appreciate his contribution to the SMEs, because I could remember during the COVID period also he initiated something like this. And once again, during this period also now he has initiated. And also I would seek the support of the professionals and especially accountants to support the affected SMEs at this period, because there are so many things to be done. So government has initiated relief measures, and I think the details discussed by other two speakers, Atula and Suresh, so I'm not going to discuss in detail the 200,000 immediate support for the businesses, the 5 million, the building, and also the agriculture sector, fisheries sector, and also the central bank relief measures. Both of them discussed about how to do that. But here my appeal to our professionals and accountants are to support the SMEs, because sometimes they don't, the affected SMEs, it will take time for them to understand this and consult. So therefore, if you could advise your customers or your other colleagues, or if you can have a support system to support these SMEs, one thing is to claim their insurances and also these relief measures. So IDB, EDB, and all our institutions coming out of the ministry is having a support system in the regions with the divisional and the district secretariats. And we have initiated a ministry, a digital information system. So anyone can upload their businesses, the affected, the information data. Based on the data, we verify, and we are planning to release the funds from next week. So the process also we have simplified, and so there was a discussion about the government officers, whether they will take decisions. So you could see the water board, the electricity board, the roads, railways, the telecom, all are working and they are taking decisions, and all the connections are given. And Dhananath also said the supply chain and the vegetables are now available in Colombo, so therefore the prices are there. And tourists, no cancellations. Yesterday, the chairman of Exports Development Board announced by taking the current situation also, next year's the target would be about $20 billion US dollars. So with this, what I want to communicate is the government has the commitment, and government has now passed the money, and the monies are available, and the government bodies and the officers are working hard. And also we must thank and appreciate especially the divisional secretariats, armed forces, and NGOs, the community, the foreign services, and institutions. So all are working together. So we seek the support of the professionals, especially accountants. So additionally, when we are talking about the economy in 2026, the ministry, as I said, the database is, this is another opportunity for us because all the data are coming. So therefore the database would be updated. National Land Bank is being, done, and so we will be facilitating our industry zones, BOI and non-BOI. National Incubator Accreditation Agency, there is a proposal. We are going to set up that to support the incubation and also R&D commercialization. Professor Whatever always talk about export houses. Now we are seriously looking at setting up regional export houses, and NEDA, we are taking that forward, and also our ministry. Access to finance, the budget they have allocated by 80 billion. Here, once again, I seek the support of the banking sector, because I also was in a bank, SDB Bank, but now this year's whatever the allocated amount, we could disburse only 50%. So this 80 billion disbursements, we need the support from professional organizations and also banks. There are different segments. I don't want to specify all these details. And the credit guarantee institution and the support system, I think Atul also discussed. And there is a proposal to set up the microfinance and, there's a mistake, microfinance and credit regulatory authority, where the microfinance segment also will be streamlined. As I said, the reforms, Danath also said that we want to continue reforms. Yes, we will continue reforms. The ministry will continue their plans of amalgamating IDB, NEDA, SED, and also Laksala Design Center and few other organizations. SOE reforms will continue, that sustainability, Danath and others just discussed. The digital economy or the transformation will support the public sector, service quality, and the cost. There will be a cost effectiveness and also efficiency of delivery. One area is the R&D commercialization. Government is very keen about this with the universities now, linking universities with the industry, and there will be a process to commercialize R&D and also support innovations. Industry focus, industry transformation, the ministry, EDB, and other institutions are now looking at new products, new markets, and innovation-led growth. As I said, the digital and AI economy also will support additional contribution to the GDP. So the set targets, I think we will have to revise with this calamity, but we are in the right direction. So new areas are the blue economy and the creative economy areas we are seriously looking at. And about the funding, foreign funding and the support system, the government has set up Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund and a management committee mainly from the private sector and experienced government officers. So that is a good move. In addition, we are now planning to have Northern Province Investment Summit on the 21st and 22nd January. So we invite everyone to, contribute in these efforts. So with these initiatives, I think we should be able to face these challenges. Sri Lankans are resilient. You know that we had a lot of problems, but still we are working, and I think we should be able to transform the industry and also the economy if we all work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I can take.
Yeah. Now we will move to the panel discussions. And Mr. Sulaiman, did you join with us? Okay, so Dr. Kuladunga Rajabaksha, Mr. Shan Veerasegara, Mr. Nandasri Pannaperama, as well as Senior Professor T. Maraperama and Mr. Mohan Fernando will join us as a panelist. To start the proceedings, I would like to invite Dr. Kuladunga Rajabaksha to give initial thoughts for. So, Mr. Sulaiman, we will take from there 2 to 3 minutes individual comments. After that, we'll go for the question and answer session.
Right.
Yeah, Dr. Rajabaksha, over to you.
Thank you very much, Brother Lex. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry, if
thank
the
you.
audience has any questions, then they can put it on the Q&A or the chat.
Q&A.
Right. So, okay.
Thank you very much, Professor, for giving us the opportunity to participate for this seminar, which is very important seminar, especially.
Yeah, they can put the
One.
Q&A.
Okay, continue,
Yeah.
Mr. Raju.
Yeah, very important session because at the time of this disaster, SME sector has been covered. SME sector is the most important sector at this moment because that contributes 52% of the economy. Now, the main important point that I mentioned, which coupled with the budget, is the VAT threshold of bringing down to 36 million. This has been done with the intention of increasing the tax revenue. I may have doubts whether that revenue is estimated revenue can be recovered by bringing down threshold because there will be many avoidance that is coming up with the system because the number of taxpayers coming into the tax net will be so much. It is impossible for IRD to manage with the other system of refunding the tax, extra system refunding as well. Then further, this will be implemented from 1st April 2026. As Mr. Ranavira suggested, to be effective by 1st April 2026, the VAT registration has to be done by the SME sector by January 2026. The time frame is very limited, and the proposal of delaying it till January 2027 would be a good proposal. I would suggest the intention is to collect the taxes, to increase the tax base. If that is the intention, I would suggest that right now VAT and SSE is both taxed on the same tax base is same, tax system is same. On the same party, they are going to tax both VAT and SSE. So VAT calculation is really a cumbersome procedure, especially for SME sector, because when you take the groceries, they sell meal packets, they sell milk powder, all that, and their sale is definitely more than 100,000 per day. And within that 100,000, there are items which are not VATable as well. So therefore, it is difficult for them to segregate between VAT payable items and VAT non-payable items. That's another big process for them that will lead to avoidance. If they can include the good old system of SSL only, which is virtually the BTT, excluding VAT for all the under this threshold, that will enable the increase the tax base. But the moment you bring the VAT, it's so complicated, the avoidance will be much higher. That is one of the things that we should have considered. Other point is, now those groceries who are selling these price marked items such as biscuits and milk powder packets are price marked. For them to sell at a higher price, including VAT and SSE, the price has to go up by 20%. They do not have such markup in that packet with the price marked items. Unless, of course, they claim the VAT input. But claiming VAT input will not be practically possible for small sector. This is one of the issues that is facing. Then, other issue is about the disaster. With the disaster, already they are come out of the COVID. Immediately coming out of that, there was a moratorium given during the COVID as well. Further moratorium will not work at all because they can't handle two moratoriums, or they can't give further loans. Therefore, the proposal has been there to give them grants. So that would be the best arrangement to start it. Now, startup of 200,000 for a business is not enough. That has to be increased because they are allowing 5 million to build up a house. So therefore, to start the business, the limit has to be much more than what they are recommended now. That has to be done. Because the difficult part is those who are affected by the disaster, they don't have electricity, they don't have the working capital, they don't have even the business premises is also not available. Therefore, to start that business, they need to have a good startup, not a loan at all, but a grant, which they have recommended through the banks to help the SME sector because they do have a database of the SME sector and they do have sufficient profits. So they can allocate part of the profits to start up into this small SME sector to start. Then we have seen private sector donors are coming up. And right now, today the figure had been 1.89 million. I suggest that these private sector donations they are dispersed exclusively to the private sector only, and that also given to the private sector, SME sector, because those are the people who are worstly affected, and they are most of them are unorganized sectors. But when we disperse these loans, I suggest that we adopt a very simple and a simple system. There can be some misuses as well, but if you try to save 100 rupees by spending 1,000 rupees, that won't work. The system must be easy so that it can be claimed by the really affected people without any hazards, because some of them they don't have any document to prove except the photos of the devastated business places. So the Grama Sevaka has a very big role to play. I wonder whether he can play this alone. So Grama Sevaka will have only evidence they will have is the photos of the business places. So therefore, that document is a vital document that will be considered. So these are the few things that we have to consider. Then further thing is now private sector donation by individuals or companies will be very limited with the present tax base, because there is a very high taxes. Unless we introduce a system that investment relief is given for these donations, or tax relief is given for the donations, approved as an approved donation. That has been not there, that has been silent. So unless government announce that any donation for the disaster funds is tax free or tax exempted, that will be a promotion to contribute more. Then other thing is the duty. Now there also a proposal for duty-free import of items required during this period. These have to be very carefully done, and we have to ensure that only the required items and the required quantities are brought in within the stipulated period. Otherwise, people might exploit the situation and import items which are not required at this moment, and they use massive stocks and disperse at a higher profits after clearing those goods with duty free. That's a very important area where we have to be very careful in allowing duty free imports for the disaster relief funds. Those items must be handled by the government and distributed to the needy, and should be allowed for the limited period with limited quantities on the essential items only. Otherwise, unwanted items will come and they will keep in the stores and sell at a higher price because they are allowed as duty free. This is a very serious situation that we monitor very carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rajabaksha. Now I move to Mr. Shan Veerasagara, Group Director, Capital Maharaja Organization.
Thank you, Professor Vatawala and the team CMA for inviting me for this session. In fact, Professor Vatawala started saying that the SME sector is the backbone of the Sri Lanka, because 52% of the contribution to the GDP is not a small thing that we can just take it easy. So at the same time, the employment, if you look at, it is almost 5%. So having said that, what are we doing about it? Now, this is a very serious situation where that we know very well. Almost the initial details of the disaster management center released, saying it is around 22 districts, but then apparently that we are even saying that almost 25 districts have been affected with this Ditwa cyclone. So what will happen if the SMEs are going to be weaker? The markets will shrink. When the market is shrinking, it will lead to the unemployment ratio, so that the rising of unemployment. Then when the unemployment rises, then the consumption will come down. When the consumption is down, the other sectors also will get impacted. So this is a chain reaction. So the government and the private sector organizations will have to look at this very positively, even the bankers. If you don't support these SMEs, very definitely it is going to be highly impacting us in years to come, or even months to come. Of course, definitely there is an adverse impact, but of course, if we don't act fast and cleverly, strategically, there will be many other issues that we need to face. Then how do you tackle this situation? Now, what I am believing in as a Maharaja organization, when this situation occurred, we began supporting the affected people. So we believe in the relief to reform. Now, if you don't understand these few stages that are very essential in addressing this kind of a devastation, it's going to be very, very detrimental to the future. Now, relief, it preserves life. If you don't support those affected, very definitely that they can't survive. So it has been very good because I myself have been into many disaster relief centers. So I realized the life that they have been continuing. So that it has been a very good experience to understand how we should look at it. Now, relief, you cannot continue. If you continue to give relief, the people will get used to it and they will never want to recover. So the next stage is recovery. So to recover, it has to restore the basic stability. Now, how are you going to recover these? Now, recovering does not mean that you can only give the material support, right? So disasters does not destroy only the structures or only their assets, but also the confidence. So there, I believe that the government should bring in all those the professionals in mental health development. You have to create mentors, you have to give psychological support because already there are undercurrents that I can understand. I can see very well, like after tsunami, that there are operators, they will do child trafficking. So if you don't have a proper structure or system to support them with trained teachers, health workers, and community leaders in psychological first aid, also setting up community counseling and peer support networks and safe space for children, integrate culturally rooted healing practices, and all that are very, very essential and detrimental to recover these affected people. Then comes the rebuilding. But when you say rebuilding, we are rebuilding the livelihood, and especially when it comes to SMEs. You know that some of those SMEs, they have lost everything they had, including lands, including their buildings. So where to start? Even they can't identify their own land where it was, and they don't know, they have no proof. Now see, if we say that if you have to give some aids or the assistance, there's no way that they can prove. Sometimes, all but they have lost. So therefore, we need to establish a very strategic system to evaluate those affected. And coming to taxation, now if you look at the taxation, now we are still having the same understanding. Now when it comes to this, when it comes to this new VAT invoice format linked to digital accounting system, adds cost and the complexity. Because all these SMEs, already they have lost everything. Now, if you are on top of that, if you are saying that you have to start with the digital invoicing, they don't have those infrastructure. Now, how can they already employ that? They don't have this kind of ERP systems or anything that could help them to generate those kind of invoicing. And also, they can't suddenly invest on those infrastructure. So therefore, I suggest that it has to be the government must think of subsidizing VAT compliant invoicing system, provide phase transition timelines, and temporary relief from penalties, special concessions for disaster-affected SMEs, provide training and capacity building. Now, when it comes to training, it could be provincial council level training, it could be internal revenue level training. So training has to be given to them because they are not used to this kind of digital invoicing or this kind of VAT calculation system. So this is very, very remote from their knowledge. Actually, when you say SMEs, they are actually very small, unorganized sector. So these are the few things that I would like to highlight, given the few minutes that I have. So if there's any question that I can answer, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mohan Fernando, Chief Manager, SME, Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, the CMA team and everybody who is joining. Very good evening to all of you. I think as commercial bank, it's my duty to explain how best we could support our SMEs through this relief package plus to our initiatives in the bank representing the banking sector. So as all of us know, yes, it's another challenging time for all of us. As a nation, we have been always proven remarkable resilience over challenges that we have faced, and we have been able to overcome it. So this time too, we are facing a very challenging situation. So as commercial bank, we were very much active, and we took the initiative to support our SMEs at the very inception itself, soon after this disaster, even before this relief package was announced. So with that proactive initiatives, we have already supported our SMEs. Now I will just take a few minutes to explain to add some clarity on this relief package, which was introduced by central bank, I would say, which is a very timely initiative. And under this relief package, actually, this is just only a guide. I would say always as banks, we are prepared to go beyond that guide and give certain support for SMEs, individuals, and also the entire business community. And we will not confine only to what is, or we will not limit our initiatives only to what is mentioned in the circular, because this is just only a guide. But that it shows what is expected minimum from the banks. But as banks, we have to go beyond that and support our SMEs, for which we are really committed. So under this relief package, basically, there are three main areas. One is the concessions given for the existing loan capital and the loan interest. So there are three options: either the affected borrowers, individuals, or the businesses can apply to differ or for interest concessions for it to be postponed from 3 to 6 months. It can be postponed either only interest or the capital, or both, either interest or capital. So all those three options are available with regard to overdrafts, just the interest. And also in addition to that, there is another component where the affected borrowers or individuals can apply for a new loan for a period of 2 years, and also with a minimum grace period of 3 months at an interest rate of 9%. And any borrower who is in need of a period beyond 2 years certainly can negotiate for an interest rate based on the AWPLR. And also, in addition to these two concessions, there will be certain concessions on or suspension of fees and other charges. So the affected businesses and individuals will no longer have to bear check return charges, then stop payment charges, and also late payment fees, and also the fees applicable for loan restructuring and rescheduling. In case such, if the system has automatically charged those the charges or fees, the banks are supposed to return it or reverse those charges and give it back to the customer within 3 working days. And also, there is another instruction under the circular. If any bank is rejecting a request made by affected borrower or a business, the bank has to give it in writing. And also the borrower, the affected business or the individual can always appeal it to the central bank, to the Director Financial Consumer Relations Department with regard to their appeal. So likewise, this under the relief package also there are certain arrangements made for all the SMEs to get whatever they want to rebuild and restart their operations. So again, I'm repeating, this is only a guide. So all banks including commercial bank, we are ready to support SMEs, and no SME will be set aside, or they will not be alone, because the banks are, heavily relying on the customers, SMEs, because they being the main business community in this country, and also majority of them represents the highest portion of percentage of their loan book and also the assets when it comes to bank. So looking after them is something that needs priority, and where we are fully focused on. So again, I'm repeatedly telling that as banks, we will follow these instructions, the relief package, the guidance given, but it will not be limited to that. Always we are ready to go beyond that and support our SMEs to look after them and to help them to rebuild and start their businesses again. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I will move to a fellow council, Mr. Nandasri Ponnaperama. Over to you, Mr. Nandasri.
We can't hear you. Mr. Nandasri, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Nandasri. We can't hear. Seems to be there some technical issues. Still we sorted out that. I'll move to Mr. Sulaiman for his opening remarks on this subject and topics.
Thank you, Mr. Gajendran. Yeah, on opening topics, so I think I'll probably cover some of the implications on the tax compliance part based on the budget as well as post disaster. Three, I think it was covered before, but I thought I'll just touch on it. Of course, the VAT threshold and the SSCL threshold coming down, and how its impact will be on the SME sector, because it's targeting that very lot. So from a revenue perspective, I don't think there was a huge expectation of revenue from this, but rather to get everybody into the system and to ensure that we have a sufficient enough base so that there is no leakage from the system is what I think the intention was. But post disaster, I think whether that should be relooked at, whether more time should be given that a lot of these SMEs, especially in those affected areas, so perhaps some geographical consideration be given for those to comply with these changes is something I think the government should consider to make it effective, and also consider the impact of the disaster. On the income tax compliance side, I think the income tax returns were due on 20th November, and I think the Commissioner General has been graceful in extending the timeline twice to 8th of December and subsequently to end of this month, which is also positive because, like was mentioned, some businesses have nothing left, so even 31st December may not be sufficient for some, which I think will be taken into consideration going forward. And then on the new VAT invoice, again, there were very short timeline was given to adhere to a specified format by January 1st. That also we made several submissions through various chambers and organizations, and that is also hopefully going to get pushed to April 1st is what I hear, but subject, of course, to a formal notification by the IRD. So I think most authorities on the tax compliance side at least have been flexible and have taken into account the current situation. But I think a more firmer framework and policy needs to come through once we have a full impact of how this disaster has impacted SMEs and how that translates into compliance possibilities, plus how it affects the budget proposals, especially on the tax side for SMEs. So those are the few sort of areas I thought I will just touch on before we proceed to the panel discussion. Thank you.
Gajendra,
Yeah,
can you hear me
now we can hear you. Go ahead,
Okay.
please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gajendra, and thank Professor to having this type of topic, the relevant topic for the period. So this today, that we've been having two themes. One is the budget as proposed for 2026 and impact of severe natural disaster cyclone. So first of all, I'll discuss the tax implication, especially for this reducing of tax threshold, SSCL and VAT. How will it affect to the SME sector? But in meantime, the IRD abolished the SFAT system also. It also affect to the SME sector. So now more SME will enter into the VAT net, including many micro and small business that previously operated out of the VAT system. Once they enter the system, those are new people. So they have to comply with the so many regulation and recording some books. So that is SME sector, that's a new sector, like 36 million is a small amount. That means most of the SME sector is covering for this VAT system. So they have to maintain record book, especially like, so if I'm talking about as a practicing accountant, we are facing so many difficulties regarding the VAT matters. So they have to submit a VAT return on time, and before that they have to maintain records, input VAT schedule, output VAT schedule, run the system, and they have to verify the tools. So those things. If there is something happen, it's not matching. So what will happen later on? The department will issue the assessment. So they have to pay that issue also there. And also the cash flow problem, the SME sector, sometimes there will be deferred collecting the VAT amount. But even though the taxpayer has to pay taxes, right? So then that problem is there. Also getting the input VAT invoices. It is a very difficult task because now the department into the new issue the gazette. Recent issue the new gazette 2463 upon 5. That is a gazette issue for the VAT invoices for with its immediate effect from the effect from the January 1st, 2026. That is compulsory, right? That is a very complicated system because that SME sector adhere to the new VAT system also, VAT invoices. So my advice to the SME sector, at least maintain these in minimum books, recorded books, like cash book, or they have to maintain all the daily receipt and payment, and also sales register. So then they have to have a separate tax invoice, credit notes, receipt, and also purchase register. Supply invoices, VAT input, expenses. And also they have to maintain that I said that relevant format for the issuing VAT invoices. And also they have to retain the document at least 5-6 years, unless there will be problem. You know, even currently, if you issue a tax assessment, so we have to appeal within 30 days. Then department will have so many documents. So we will send to the department, then sometime they will pick the same assessment. So then again we have to go to the administrative. So administrative, they will have same document or equal or less. But they will ask so many queries, and what happened? After 2 years, they will pick the same without any doing any hearing of our appeal. Then the case is coming. Now we only option we have to go tax appeal commission. And now this budget, the previous budget, into the new thing. You are familiar with that. Before going to tax appeal commission, the taxpayer had to keep the bank guarantee 25% of the sum assets. Who are getting the benefit for that? Tax department not getting any benefit. Even taxpayer not getting benefit. Only getting benefit from the bankers, right? Because we have to give the bank guarantee for until the case is over. So then that is very limited. That is the some restriction to the taxpayers to go for the tax appeal commission, because 25% of the assess sum of assets. But sometimes the assessment will be is not relevant for that tax matter. They are adding something like that, right? So those are the matters. But in addition to now VAT threshold came to 30 million, 3 million per month. So very difficult task for the SME sector. So that's the thing, we have to educate our SME sector, or we have having some workshop, especially from the CMA. We can do something for our taxpayers, educate them how to tackle these matters, what type of document to keep record, at least they have a separate bank account, and keep the cash book, sales registers, like that. To pay this disaster, what can be proposed to the government? But still, I have not seen in IR department issue any amendment or any tax or any relevant acts or anything. You can remember that 2021 during the COVID period, the tax department issued a temporary provision act, and also the Finance Act 2021 issued giving some benefit to the taxpayers. So I think we hopefully expecting the IR department will issue a new act for giving some benefit to the taxpayers. So I would like to propose to say if the government try to get this concession to the taxpayers, and also if we can encourage the corporate sector to give a donation to government. So if the IR department can give, say, 100% no, 150% no, 200% qualifying payment as a donation, the government will lose, IR department will lose only 30%. Why? For an example, the corporate sector give a donation, say 1 million. The tax department lose only 30% of that 1 million. But 100%, that the total amount goes to the government as a donation. So then we have to encourage the taxpayers or any corporate sector to give them more donation, because we have to give some concession, qualifying payment, 100% or 150% or 200%, because that is ready cash for the government, or even item goods. And also, if the IRDP can cancel some additional assessment, if they issue any additional assessment, I am not talking about the on-return taxes, that will be paid. If they have any additional tax assessment for the SME sector, I think they have to either cancel for a certain period, and also pay off some penalties. And also, if the government can, IR department can remove the capital, thin capitalization rule for the particular period. You know that as a SME sector, the big challenge is that thin capitalization. Even company having loss, there will be the taxes because of thin capitalization. the SME business are running with some bank facility or other loans. But the tax rule, they are not allowed to deduct all the interest expenses under thin capitalization. So I think the government or II department has to take some action because all the tax part discussed Mr. Suresh and Mr. Ranavira. So these item, I think we have to enforce the government or II department to do some concern for taxpayers who are facing this disaster, especially SMBC. As Mr. Suresh said that if you can postpone this reduction threshold for at least 1 year, it will be more helpful to the who are facing the disaster for the SME. So anything regarding that maintaining a books or any how to help to that SME sector regarding the keeping the records and things, so we can ready to give some training program or any workshop or through a CMA or with the Professor whatever, so we can conduct some workshop how to maintain this type of books. If you are not maintain the proper record, what will happen? End of the day, that was the SME sector faces difficult situation to paying additional taxes on the assessment because they don't have a proper record. They have no any experience to maintain records. So we have to teach them, we have trained them to how to keep those documents. Thank you, Gajendra.
Thank you, Nandasri. Is Professor Butti Maraparama join the session?
No, he is not come again.
Okay, then now I will hand it over to Mr. Sulaiman for the moderation.
Thank you, Gajan. So we don't have too many questions that have come in yet. So let me just start with a few questions. I think Dhananath, you're online. I'll shoot the first one to you. Can you hear me, Dhananath?
Yes.
Right. So so I think the budget obviously was before this huge calamity, and many SMEs have, I think we've heard it several times, lost infrastructure, inventory, and cash flows. Does the pre-DITFA budget, in your view, that came create enough breathing space, or do we now need to fundamentally have a different SME support package focusing on SMEs, or do you think there's sufficient space within the budget to sort of cater or fund this revival of this sector?
Yeah, so the truth is I don't have a straightforward answer because the estimations from what I saw from the Honorable Minister and the Deputy Minister mentioned on the SME sector, I think the estimation was about 4,100 to probably about between 4,000 to 5,000 SMEs have been affected. So on that scale, what the initial announcement was 200,000. Definitely, that is not going to adequate. That is for sure. But if they have the space to allocate more, depends on what else that have we allocated for other damages. And from the numbers that I have checked, it's about probably about 300 billion in total. Is even in the back of the calculation seems to be the expenditure on top of like for these house damages and all that. So in that case, to cover, or because if you give something, you have to give it for everyone else. I mean, everybody equally. So I'm not sure what sort of a space that we have. For as my understanding, there is very limited space. In that front, the solution is, in my view, because if the government really do not have space to do that, one way to look at it is bring the expenditure part down. Because if the government cannot really increase their revenue, one way to look at it is bring the expenditure part down. That's where, for an example, on rebuilding, let's say construction, as we know, our construction cost is about 40% higher than the region. So if we can bring down cost of construction at about like 10%, 15%, even 20%, then that's in a way a relief for the people to rebuild. But when it comes to stocks and all that has been damaged, very difficult. But again, a way to look at it is on the macro side, considering the tariff structure. But otherwise, if we have the space, I have no opposition to having a package. It's a matter of whether we have the fiscal space or not, and without increasing the inflation. Because ultimately, if we increase the inflation, as per the first UNDP report, out of 2 million, it seems more people are already under poverty out of the victims. So if we increase inflation, they would be the impact on them would be greater if we increase inflation.
So the capital, what was allocated for capital expenditure both last year, which is not fully utilized yet, and what is coming up for next year, which seems to be fairly large. If that was funneled into this, would you sort of reallocate it, like you said, save on the expenditure, and you would reallocate? There is some significant amounts available there as well.
If we repurpose, I think the need is also the government to basically, while the budget was approved and we are having the discussion on the budget, but definitely to repurpose some of the money that we have allocated for other expenditure and to channel it for disaster recovery. In that case, we have, but again, I'm not sure about the gravity of the impact. And also, when you say SMEs, because some of even the registered SMEs may be depending on the informal sector SMEs, and sometimes if they were affected, then probably the supply chains of the registered or the formal sector SMEs may also have an impact. But I think definitely a broad scale relief package, there's nothing wrong in doing that. If we have the space, I think we have a little bit of space, but not sure whether it is like 5 million, 6 million worth of disbursement for a small scale. I'm not sure whether we can go to that extent.
All right, thanks. Suresh, are you online? You're on mute at the moment. Hi,
Yeah, I'm
Suresh.
there.
Yeah, just a quick one to you, Suresh. So still we don't have many questions in the Q&A. If anyone does have any questions, please throw it on the Q&A and we'll sort of take those up one by one. Suresh, in terms of what policy tools should the government consider, such as, do you think a supplementary budget is required, if at all new taxes are required to raise this? What sort of framework from a tax point of view do you think should coming or should be considered, or what options do they have? Whether it be emergency tax credits, any emergency deductions that we give to draw private sector also in to support this. Any thoughts around
Yes,
some policy?
I think at this moment SMEs need help. Actually, taking into consideration the other economic disasters or whatever that happened 2-3 years back also, it is the SMEs actually got the hit. See, basically what happened was for SMEs who were at 14% were increased to 30%, whereas the standard companies that were at 28% were increased by just 2% to 30%. So they are also actually the brunt of the the turbulence in the economy was basically shouldered by the SME sector. Now, on top of that, this disaster coming and basically wiping out their remainder is a big thing. So basically, you need to, I think the government should specifically focus on the SMEs here as to how to assist them, and they should have a short-term plan and a long-term plan. Two different things, right? So right now, immediately, I think there's a lot of sympathy towards Sri Lanka and even within Sri Lanka also, and there are many donors who want to make donations. Now, what I feel is basically the existing tax framework in the Inland Revenue Act is not that helpful for attraction of the donations from both within local and outside there also. As you see, basically, under Section 52, what do we have as tax incentives for people who are making donations, institutions that are making donations? We do have donations to the government and to the approved charity as tax deductible. But other than that, we don't have anything else. And not only that, basically our tax structure is such, when a person receives the donation, more often than not, that the amount that is donated in the hands of the recipient is also taxable. It can come in many ways. Basically, let's say a company is giving assistance to the employees to rebuild their one, and that will come as profits from employment. So we need to, I think, first relook at that donation structure, the tax implications with regard to donations in Sri Lanka, and we need to plug those aspects there. So at the same time, when we try to give tax concessions for the donors, that also leads to abuse. But here I think we need to have a short-term policy, basically at least for 1 year. Okay, all the donations that are coming, maybe give them donors to be given some kind of a relief, and also basically when these are being disbursed, for it to be tax-free. I think that tax framework we need to create within Section 52 and the 5th schedule. I think that's a important one. I would also suggest maybe creation of a SME fund. Now I couldn't finish in my presentation. There are so many funds that the government of Sri Lanka has created under disaster fund, and so many of them. Now I would suggest let's make a SME fund, maybe from the point of the government or maybe from the point of view of the private sector, an SME fund, and any donation to the SME fund, both local and the foreign, to be tax-free in the hands of the SME fund, because that should not be a taxable entity, and donor also to get some kind of relief, maybe a tax deduction or maybe a percentage of a deduction kind of a thing, but a time bound. We are not going to keep this thing open forever. And then when the the affected parties, the SMEs, to get relief from this fund. I think if you create a dedicated fund of this nature, so it will be easy to attract donations also for this one. Sometimes even the big institutions like multinational institutions like ADB, etc., may also make donations when we create something of this nature. So I think that's something we should consider.
Sure. Thanks, Suresh. So coming down to
and one more thing, Sulena. Sorry. So now basically immediate thing is on the we have a tax installment coming on the 15th of February.
Yeah.
And as we know, basically in the CBSL one, okay, there is a suspension of the capital and the interest component with regard to the liabilities or the loans that they have to pay. But at the same time, this 15th February payment could also be a burden to the SMEs. Yeah, so basically maybe sometimes deferral for that installment may not be a bad idea.
Yeah, unless they take the position that if they're affected, there's unlikely to be a profit this year and move on current year basis.
Correct,
but still,
I know.
the client's burden is there, right? You have to file the device set and all that, so some relief. Lakshman Abhisegara, are you online?
Yes.
Yeah. As a quick question, just to check on are there lessons, I mean, if you were aware or you were involved earlier from previous disasters? I mean, we had a flood about 3 years ago again that should shape and redesign the SME rehabilitation framework post this current crisis. Any lessons that you think can be brought forward into this based on your experience?
Yes, one thing is the efficient and effective system to disperse these whatever the relief measures. That, of course, especially our ministry has taken a very short and very simple process where 3 of our officers will go and assess, and the heads of the divisions will certify. With that certification, the divisional secretaries will disburse the funds. So with our certification, the funds will be released from our ministry to the respective divisional secretariats. So that we have simplified. The second one is the SME, the loan and the bank curse. So we were facing difficulties to facilitate the NPL customers in the past by coordinating the banks, and so therefore we need the support from the professionals, the accountants, and also the banking community to look at differently and look at case by case basis, and also to give immediate relief to them, and also discuss with them, visit them, support them. Don't wait until they come to your bank or the branch. So we have to have that type of a system where our ministry officials are now in the field. Sometimes some people, continuously, even weekends, also in the field with the customers. So our IDB officers, they are mainly engineers. They are visiting the industries and supporting the engineering services and linking the engineering association where there is a group. They are doing voluntary work. So likewise, there are support systems. So we have to coordinate and support. So therefore, the private sector, the banking sector, and the accountants community also must look at things differently and go to their places and give a continuous support. And from the ministry, the affected SMEs and industries, we are going to work with them for the next 2 years. Not only the relief, thereafter the risk management, the governance, especially most of them have not insured. So those type of things we are going to work with them closely for the next 2 years.
Sure. Thanks for that. And Dr. Kulatunga Rajapaksa, you are online. You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
On the from a large company's point of view, working with a lot of SMEs, what kind of public-private coordination mechanisms do you think would be necessary to restore, especially the production networks involving both large firms and dependent SMEs? I think there are a lot of feeder SMEs into the large-scale businesses who are part of the value chain. Is there some public-private sort of coordination that can happen to expedite this, or ensure it is done at the fastest possible speed to revive the SMEs?
Yeah, the biggest problem that most of in the supply chain, the payment procedures have not been streamlined. We have been clamoring from the very inception that all the SME sectors who are supplying to the large companies, the biggest problem that they are facing is getting the payments on time.
Right.
But in India, there's a law, SME law, where large companies, it is mandatory that they should pay to the small SME sector within 14 days through the bank. And our company do have a system there. We have a supply chain. We have a lot of subcontractors working with us. And we work with the bank. We join with them and, we purchase the goods from them. And through the bank, the payments are made within 14 days.
Right.
That if that can be implemented, lot of SME sectors will be benefited, because SME sector, as you know, they do not have the working capital. They don't have the marketing strength. Therefore, they have to depend on the large company for the marketing. But the large company, what they do is they buy the products, ask for 60 days or 90 days credit, and return the item that have been not been sold. That's the worst part of it. So I think SME, I think that is happening. That's a crime. Once you manufacture the products and give to them, and if they can't sell it, return to the supplier, is a crime. I think we have to strengthen the law, SME law, bring it to the parliament, and have a law that SME sectors must be registered, and those who supply to large companies, it is mandatory. They should pay within 14 days. If we can implement that, now Toyota company or the large companies have this regulation, and India, there's already an act in the parliament, and they are doing it. They're practicing very well. That's one of the main important items. I think, Mr. Professor Patawala has been clamoring for this for such a long time now. It has not been happening. That's a very, very important part of legislation that we are bringing.
That will really strengthen the system. No? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Mohan, are you online? Mohan, you're on mute. Mohan, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Okay, hi, Mohan. Yeah, so a quick one on this. Under what conditions can new loans be granted to affected borrowers? If you can just educate, especially those who are SME.
Yeah, it's very, very simple. Yeah, it's very simple, because according to the guidelines given by the central bank, any business or individual, whether their business or their income has been directly affected, certainly they will be eligible for the relief or the concessions circulated under this relief package. And also they have, it's specifically has given the instructions to the banks to mainly focus on the future repayment capacity and the project viability. So those are the main things that the banks will have to look into when considering facilities, new loans for these affected borrowers. And also the rate, it is very straightforward, and anything beyond whatever the circular guidelines, always the borrowers could negotiate with the bank. And also with regard to the relief measures, no additional interest could be charged. No additional interest will be charged. It will be the contract interest, and during the deferred repayment period, no interest be charged. It will be additional interest will be charged. So whatever the accumulated interest would be the contract interest rate. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Sean, are you online?
Yes, Mr. I'm there.
Hi. So, just on the, the budget, of course, came before this. But what are your views on how the budget should be structured or restructured in any way, if you think necessary, to support the immediate sort of recovery and flood-related economic impact to especially the affected communities?
Yeah. See, as I previously explained, this I'm broadly talking about the SME sector now. See, if you look at the building material sector, there are many hardware outlets, and there are businesses, limited to a particular territory, and there are customers affected this time, and then their outlet also washed away. So.
Yes.
Looking at their lost stock machinery, if there are any small time manufacturers, subcontractors, all that being affected with this. So their machinery, tools, their operations halted overnight, informal business risk exclusion, income stopped, expenses are continuing, recovery slow. So they need to come back to the system. So what I'm suggesting, the government need to look at establishing structured coordination among government, private sector, NGOs, and communities. Now, see, the relief, you could have seen, there had been so many people, started providing relief to the people in terms of food or whatever the other clothing, those kind of assistance. But then these alone won't help. As I explained previously, there are other requirements. So as I very clearly mentioned, that it needs to have these 4 stages completed: the relief, recovery, rebuild, and reform. Now, relief part, we have done very well. I would say that, very Sri Lankans have been very emotional, very supportive, very kind. So there have been a lot of support rendered so far. So what is the next level? The recovery. Now, to recover, one is that there should be a embed long-term disaster planning in all recovery projects. Because what are the long-term disaster plannings we have? We have to ensure SME livelihood and the infrastructure are prioritized in rebuilding. Now, the next stage of rebuilding after recovery. So first we have to look at what is the recovery. Now, if we are going to continue to help them to just live on these kind of support, assistance, aid, right? How are they going to come out? Now, it is like, there's a patient who needs antibiotic, but it doesn't mean that you can be forever with the antibiotic. The body will start, developing the immune system. So with the power of the immune system, that body will recover. So to recover, even the party affected also should have a mindset. Then building the mindset is a key. I don't know how much attention being given to the building of mental health. We are talking all monetary terms, but then there are psychological terms. Rebuilding a house takes months, but then what about rebuilding confidence? It could take years. Even today, we are calling those affected by tsunami, the kids are called tsunami kids. I mean, the society should stop talking this language. We have to get rid of this. We have to make sure that all these people had enough dignity Just because they have lost everything, they cannot, be treated as beggars or just going to be treated, somebody who is looking for help. We need to help them to rebuild. Once they rebuild, the reform must come in place. See, now, when the Easter attack happens, then the COVID came, and then various floods and drought we have experienced, right? But after some time, we tend to forget those. Then again we are living like nothing happened. So, what are the reform now? What happened to the marshal lands we had? There had been a Parliament approved, gazetted system that nobody can fill those marshal lands. The marshal lands filling and cutting trees on the hilly areas, the destroying the forest, all that is led to all these issues. I mean, the problem would have been minimized had there been a proper management of the environment. So therefore, I would say, okay, from the budget side, we must have these reforms also included in the system, so that without reform, I don't think that people can face the same kind of disaster in a better way. So if we are to take this as a challenge, we must prepare the system. And also, imagine these all the young kids who lost the school time and they have lost all their educational material. Now, you can see their mentality. When we go to those disaster relief centers, we can see how desperate they are. So, looking at these things, I would say one, if we are talking about the SME, right? SME has the biggest impact on business. But then if you look at the other way, that the people who are working there, they have lost jobs. So that markets are shrunk now, and unemployment is rising. So therefore, we need to help strengthen the SME ecosystem, build disaster and climate resilience infrastructure, improve state-private sector coordination, and also we need to promote digital documentation for informal businesses, but it has to be done in stages. I previously said that this is not the time for that because they are not ready, and now anyway it will be very tough for them. Then empower youth and volunteers as first responders, and also the recognize emotional well-being as national policy priority. And very definitely my recommendation is use this movement to modernize SME support system, expand public-private partnership for resilient infrastructure, encourage digital literacy and system adoption for informal business, because Inland Revenue, provincial councils and whoever responsible, they could help people to get educated in these areas. I think we need to move fast on relief. Now we must drive recovery, support rebuilding, and commit to reform. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Nandasiri, are you on that? Nandasiri? Hi, Nandasiri. What are the few or most critical implications of, I think you spoke about it earlier, but what do you think will really impact this reduction of the VAT threshold from 60 to 36? I know it was done before the crisis, but what would the real impact be on micro enterprises operating generally thin margins?
Yes, as I said that this is not only VAT and no SSC. SSC 2.5%. Sometimes it will be depend on their nature of the business. But the VAT threshold has been reduced by to 36 million. So then most of the SME sector will enter into the VAT net. But there's a compliance regulation is very high. It's not like income tax. The VAT compliance is very high because thing is, if the SME sector or any business person is unable to provide the required documents or submitting tax return on time, or the collecting the invoices, input invoices, and also running that verified tools. So those are things they are very difficult task for the new SME sector. These are new sector, below 36 million is a small amount. So the thing is they have to maintain the proper record system. but also they need to have some additional capital because they have to maintain their cash flow. If they then delay getting the input VAT, but even though that who are that taxpayer has to pay the VAT on time, only there will be a unnecessary penalties. The thing is, as I said, that if you are unable to comply with, then there will be unnecessary additional assessment. Assessment, then you have to go the procedure to how to appeal, and then how can go to the administrative review, and how to go to the appeal commission by paying additional bank guarantees. So that there are some complications, especially for these affected people on SME during this cyclone. So I advise to them, keep the records. At least what is the prior to this case, what are the performance record? What was the affected there? If there are any pictures or whatever photo, they keep the upload the system. And also, if you have any claim, any insurance claim, whatever, they keep the record. So then can get some relief in the future for any tax matters comes. So I advise to then keep the record, and also they have to maintain at least separate bank account to the day-to-day operation, and they keep the records properly. So then there won't be unnecessary matters. So anything, if you have some record, you have to keep the record. No need to all the ledger account. I at least maintain cash book, sales register, purchase invoice. Those, if you can maintain those things, at least they can pay any tax matters come from the later. So those are my suggestion. And also, we hopefully expecting some relief from the government, and IRD department issued a new act for giving some benefits for the taxpayers, like COVID-19. And also, if they're giving some qualifying payment to the donors, it will be very grateful. Then it will be very easy to raise fund to the government to rebuild the nation. The rebuild means not only for that, if you are giving some person the contribution, that is a rehabilitation, a reconciliation. So you have some nation reconciliation. It's a good thing for our nation. Thank you, Mr. Rehman.
Right, thanks. So, Gajendra, I think I covered everybody, right? Atula is not there.
On this, Sulaiman or to Suresh or Nandasri, one of the question from my end. So since now the government progress and the target of the donors also to bring more people to the VAT system or the income tax official formal system, but this reducing the threshold will be, we are encouraging more cash transaction to take place in the days to come.
Suresh, you can take that on.
Sorry. So basically, I think if I'm not mistaken, the question is basically reduction of the threshold means basically broad basing and bringing more people into the indirect tax net.
Yeah, that's the original plan, but by indirectly, whether it's encouraging more cash transaction to take place.
Okay, it's an interesting one. Besides this, now basically, if you look at India, they say even the person who is selling coconuts, plucking coconuts, they also basically work on the digital platforms. So bringing down people into the tax net should not mean basically encouraging tax transactions, provided the proper infrastructure is there for them to do the transactions on the digital platforms. So basically, creation of that digital platform is the government's job.
And also, Gajendra, it is not longer valid when a government all ready to start the digital platform system. So then there won't be a cash transaction no more like that.
So since we covered most of them, now we'll hand it over to the professor for the proposed future plans of the CMA on recovering this from the disaster. Oh, yeah, Mr. Fernando, you want to answer? You raise the question, yeah.
So I just have a very quick question for Suresh. Did I hear you right, Suresh? You mentioned SSCL is considered a direct tax. Did I hear you right? If that's so, why?
Correct.
And second,
yeah. So actually, this is very Social Security Contribution Levy, Nation Trust, NTB, now those are all basically taxes on the turnover of the person. There is no mandate, unlike in the VAT Act, in the law, to collect it from the other party, from the consumer. So there is no, there is no statutory mandate for it to be collected from the consumer. So what we do is we make a contractual obligation. When we sign, let's say if you're signing with our clients, okay, we put a clause and create a contractual obligation for it to be paid by the customer. So what I'm suggesting here is we have a clause in the SSCL Act itself preventing that burden being passed on to the customer so that it will actually work as a direct tax. Right now, it could be a direct tax or indirect tax in practice according to the approach of the provider of the service or the chargeable party, charging party.
Got it. Very quick, another question, Suresh. What is your opinion about a tax credit system? I know it's too late given now already the crisis has pretty much hit us. But if we had a tax credit system, for an example, even while we are bringing down the VAT threshold, even if we could declare, because based on the recovery or the speediness of the recovery, which can be pretty much tied up to an incentive, for an example, on the number of job creations. Have you seen anything in other parts of the world, or I mean, knowing the tax administration also in the country, whether this is administratively workable or whether this is an idea that we should drop and move, I mean, consider something else?
Okay, let me say, theory-wise, yes, tax credit is again, as the credit system is again another incentive mechanism. But in practice, whether credit systems will work in Sri Lanka is a good question, because I have many cases that I'm arguing at the Tax Appeals Commission where basically withholding taxes have been deducted by banks and many institutions, and the party is withholdee is in possession of original withholding tax certificates also, but at the Inland Revenue Department, because of the computer malfunctioning of the computer systems, they cannot match the payments being remitted, and they deny the credit for the withholdings that have been deducted by the banks and the other institutions. So what happens at the end is basically the withholdee suffers double jeopardy there. He pays withholding tax at source when the payment is being received, payment is being processed, and also thereafter, department raise assessments and collect that same amount with penalty also from the same party. So withholdings, the credit mechanisms to work, credit systems to work, we should have a proper how the processes at the tax authority, tax institutions. So actually I'm talking about this thing in detail Friday with regard to the tax incentive systems, designing of the tax incentive systems. So credit mechanisms, yes, is a incentive systems that we have at least seen many other countries also, for instance, Singapore, etc. Now this thing becomes very much relevant when it comes to the when we go beyond what do you call that, the base erosion profit shifting pillar 2 systems. So that in fact is a qualifying tax credit mechanism, is an incentive that we should be looking at going forward as an incentive as opposed to the tax holidays. I know a little bit technical, but there's much scope for credit mechanism, credit systems. But whether those things will work in Sri Lanka is a different question altogether.
Yeah, Professor, over to you.
No, I just want to ask Dr. Kulatunga Rajapaksa, because I think he is one both involved with the SME sector who are helping the bigger industries. What do you think that now with this current situation, how do you see that with the big industries will also get affected, and how the SMEs who have been affected could be really brought back to the normals?
Almost most of the big industries in their supply chain, SME sector is there already. So SME, with the absence of SME sector, most of the busy industries who have the supply chain will definitely get affected. In our company, we will definitely get affected because SME is the backbone, as we mentioned before. All big industries, all big supermarkets are depending on SMEs. So now the issue is the startup for SMEs, the most important thing, it has to be done very fast. Startup, more than house building and all that, is the in SME sector, those business development should be given priority because they have to stand on their foot. As Mr. Somebody mentioned, we can't be feeding them all the time. So we must we must allow them to stand on their own feet. To put that, the startups must be given. So they need a big push on financial capital and mental support, and other supports must be given. So that has to be done further quickly. And if we keep on feeding them for a longer period, they will be in that position for a longer period. And that is lost to the economy, lost to the country as well. So SME sector must be given top priority, irrespective of the size. Now, thank you.
Another thing I'd like to ask our gone off. Right. Okay. Maybe I'll just like to ask Mr. Shan Veerasekar. Now, I know that you all are also involved very much in the relief work and all, but maybe how do you see? Do you think that the capital expenditure that has to be brought in which way do you think that support could be given both locally and internationally?
Professor, I think that one way could be that the government should encourage the investors, whoever now see, okay, if you're talking about the SME industry, that whoever had lost their business, they need to re-establish the business, so that they need to have a proper plan, because some people have lost everything, some people have partially lost something, so that they need to have a proper business plan. And then there should be, I think, perhaps through the divisional secretaries, that they can identify all those areas, and then could bring in central bank can appoint some teams to evaluate these things and then work out a system. But how do you bring funds is a greater challenge, because government, I don't know, with this kind of cash outflow, government can't get the cash inflow as well. With the taxpayers are getting affected totally, and then next few months, and then even the next year are going to be reduction in the government income. So how are they going to encourage these donations is the next challenge. So for that only, I previously also said that we need to have a set of people working together, the government, the PPP, public private partnership. So you need to get these public donors, private donors, international donors, even the NGOs to work together, so that we can work out something very, very constructively to achieve this objective in a short-term basis.
I think Lakshman Abhesekar, you are having any?
Yes, Professor. I also agree with him. The private sector, public sector must now work together. And there also a proposal to set up a SME fund by the private sector solely to support the SMEs, affected SMEs. So if you can take the leadership on that, I think a lot of private companies and also those who are living in other countries also would contribute. But there should be a mechanism to set up that fund and make sure that we use those funds to develop SME sector. So we also can support in that endeavor.
Right. So anyway, I think now most of the areas have been covered. But I'm sure that these only really just start. We really had this webinar mainly to get everyone interested in this, because what we really see is that it is a major disaster that has affected our country, which will include the society also in a big way, you know. So everyone will have to really give up their best and then see. But I'm sure that the area that we have been talking of trying to bring down the threshold, I think Suresh also mentioned that that should not be done immediately, because this will also not enable the SME to really to raise their heads if they are going to maybe again going to rather than starting their business itself, that if they really go to maybe work on the payment of taxes and other things, that will greatly maybe affect them. So I think this bringing down the threshold should be definitely not brought in immediately. Maybe they can look at not 2026 but 2027 at least, to see then by that time that the economy would have recovered, the SMEs should have been recovered, so that it would be good. So let me thank all our uh, the presenters and also the all who have really supported in giving their views on this great disaster that has struck our country, which will affect not only the SMEs but everyone. So I'm sure at this area, the government machinery really has to keep moving, because that's most important area. If the government machinery moves fast, and also that they will work with dedication, efficiency, and of course the most thing is the trust and confidence that everyone will be able to keep in them. This is one of the most important things. So let me thank our speakers, our moderators, and of course our panelists also for giving their opinion and also to making available their time for this webinar that we have had. Let me also thank all our participants because I think there were a large number who were present who really wanted to find out what is really happening. And I'm sure that this would really benefit and give a start, as our chairman of NEDA, Mr. Lakshman Abhisekar, has mentioned. I think for the SME sector, if you can have a SME Development Act, now this is something that we have been really promoting, you know. SME Development Act is very essential. Then we will be able to give them their rights, their obligations, and also to ensure that they will be safeguarded. So that's one area that if we can really look at the SME Development Act, that will really benefit. And I'm sure that your ministry has a great potential in that area, and that they will have to go out and help all the SMEs to see as to how best that they can maybe revive in this great disaster that has occurred, and how well they will be able to get back. But we should not put additional burdens. Now, this taxation, if you bring in, definitely it's going to be a burden on them. And as Mr. Randasiri mentioned, trying to keep records, it will really not help, and then they will run into much more greater difficulties. Then the digitalization, whether the government can help in setting up the platforms which will definitely support them. So I'm sure that the digitalization process that has been started by the government should be carried forward so that the benefits could be obtained by the society and the business organization. So let me thank everyone, and I'm sure that there'll be very many more areas that we will have to cover, but to everyone to give their full support and dedication towards this whole process. which will really enable our businesses to come back, our people to come back to their normalcy, so that will really help everyone. So let me thank everyone on behalf of CMA Sri Lanka for their participation, and we trust that this initial workshop that we started will really enable everyone to give up their best to overcome the situation. Thank you very much, and we will now close up our webinar and look forward for the contribution of each and everyone to overcome this great disaster that has taken place, which no one expected. But I must also mention that some of the regulatory authorities, especially maybe looking after the environment, it is a very, very important thing that we have to look at, because some of the landslides that have taken place is due to the environmental authorities not looking after how the systems have been should be enforced. So once again, let me thank everyone for their support, and let's see how we can maybe again meet up and take a look at and suggestions for the future. Thank you very much, and we'll meet later. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the panelists and all the speakers, a very big thank to Professor Patawala and the CMA team. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohan.
Thank you all. Thank you.